Good evening and welcome to Pints and Quarts, a show brought to you by the Craft Beer Nation. Today is Thursday, December 1st, the official, I guess technically the official first day of stout season. So you can start drinking those stouts right now. Anyway, our guest tonight is Jeremy Cowan. He's the owner, founder, proprietor, sometimes t-shirt folder, sometimes bathroom cleaner of Shmaltz Brewing. I think you guys are out at Clifton Park, New York. So
that's right.
Be sure to stick around and hear the wonderful things that we have to say about these. Well, but they have to say about their brewery. I personally haven't had a bad beer from them, but you know, maybe I've been lucky. Maybe they just hit home runs. I don't know. So before we get started, I want to point you to our different social media platforms. You can find us on Twitter at Craft B Nation. You can find us on Instagram at The Craft Beer Nation. And you can find us on Facebook, Craft Beer Nation, you guessed it. And you can also find us on Google+. So pour that beer in a glass and get comfortable, and be sure to come back and hear what Jeremy has to say. All right. So like I said, guys, we have a fun show lined up tonight. Shmaltz Brewing out of Clifton Park, New York. Before we get into it, I want to introduce my co-host for the night, Matt Miller. Matt, how are you doing, sir?
I'm doing fantastic. Thank you very much. It's good to be back on the show.
Yeah, it's good to have your sexiness back with us too, man. Yeah.
That's usually the reaction I get when I go places. So
that's the first thing that jumps out.
and that voice you just heard is the one and only Jeremy Cowan from Shmaltz Brewing. Jeremy, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing great, man. I'm in New Orleans having fun at a Mardi Gras party, so nothing wrong with that.
There are worse places to be on a Thursday night.
That's right.
I'm just saying. So before we even get started, I want to thank you for taking some time out from your Mardi Gras party in New Orleans to spend a little bit of time with us to talk about your brewery. So we really appreciate you.
My pleasure.
All right, so let's get into it, Jeremy. We usually start all of our shows off with the same question, because I think it's always interesting to see how people got to where they are. So where did your love affair with craft beer begin?
Oh, man. Well, that's a good question. Sorry. You guys might hear some other folks. I'm actually bounced in the office at the back of this party. I'm going to apologize to all our fans out there for drinking Crown and Coke during our Craft Beer Nation interview as well. I'd be drinking NOLA, be drinking a Beta, not in the house. But we're going to get through it. Don't worry. I've got some really nice friends here in the back of this party. So let's go. It's funny because you bring up love affair with craft beer. Where did it start? Honestly, it started a little bit here in New Orleans for me. Moved here after college many, many years ago, early 90s. I'd grown up around Sierra. I grew up around Anchor. But it wasn't until I lived here that I got introduced to a beer called Abita Turbo Dog. And the club across the street from my loft in the French Quarter had 32-ounce big gulps, $2 for Bud, $3 for Turbo Dog. I was like, that is an obvious solution.
Wait, how much was the Turbo Dog? I'm sorry.
$3.
Okay.
$3. Unbelievable. So, our preview of our pre-party go out was go downstairs, get a 32-ounce Turbo Dog, go down the street, get a 16-ounce iced coffee, and then go to Tips or go to Maple Leaf or go all over town all night long. And so strangely, it was quantity, but luckily, in addition, it was quality. So that was 1991, 92. Started drinking Abita Turbo Dog, and I worked at the only brew pub down here, which is called Crescent City Brew House. So I got to know more flavorful beers, got introduced to European beer styles, talked to a million people working at Crescent City Brew House. They'd come in and say, like, oh, let me have a Bud Light, man. I go, hey, we make our own beer. It's called a Pilsner. And they're like, oh, cool, no problem. I'll just have a Coors Light. They're like, no, actually, we make the beer here. We brew it here at the pub. Like, totally my bad. I'll just have a Miller Lite. Like, dude, just drink this Pilsner. It was a long way, but it's appropriate for this interview in particular that now I'm back in New Orleans, and this is where a lot of my craft beer introduction happened. But really Northern California, I mean, like so many people, Sierra, Anchor, onto Lagunitas, Anderson Valley, North Coast, Lost Coast, beers like Old Rasputin, Hop Otten IPA. So those were the beers that were inspired me in the beginning when I first started the company.
So how did that transition to well, I know that you guys initially you were you did a lot of your, I don't want to say gypsy brewer, but you were contract brewing, right?
It wasn't cool enough to be called gypsy brewing back then. It was still more or less derogatory term being called a contract brewer. But man, I was okay with that. Listen, anybody who knows me knows a bit of my story, which was I never started Hebrew Beer and Shmaltz Brewing as a beer company. And it was a major transformation for me. And it took about 10 years. I started Hebrew because it was an inside joke with my group of friends from high school. And we just thought, man, 350 years at this point, everybody else has their own beer. Literally every group has a beer and a holiday. It's time the Jews had their own. We'll call it Hebrew. And the back of the t-shirt will say, don't pass out, pass over. And that was it. I mean, I wish I had a business plan. I wish I knew anything of what I was doing at the time. I was not a home brewer. I was not an MBA. My family wasn't in the beer industry or in any other industry. My dad was a special ed teacher. My mother worked at a university in the administration. And man, and I tell that to all my wholesalers too. When they're like, how'd you ever get into the beer industry? And I literally tell them, I just think it would be fun and funny and kind of meaningful to have a beer called Hebrew. 20 years later,
right.
Things have changed a little bit. We got a 40,000 square foot warehouse north of Albany, 3 hours north of New York City. Got 33 people working for Shmaltz Brewing Company. And we make about 20 beers over the course of the year. We have 400 barrels in our barrel aging series and sours that we release throughout the course of the year. So things have changed. We're actually even contract brewing now. So I opened the brewery 3 years ago with the thought of just contract brewing for a couple friends, and turned into a big part of the business. So now we actually contract brew over 60% of our business for some really wonderful regional brewers. So I've been a contract brewer, never as fancy or as awesome as gypsy brewing though. we never won that one.
So who did you, when you were contract brewing, did you work mostly with one brewery?
Yeah.
Where you did all of your brewing at, or what brewery was that?
Yep. Yeah, so I started out at this tiny little brewery in Cupertino, Northern California, south of San Francisco. It's called Brewmakers. And the cool thing, it was one of those little brew on premise places. It was called a BOP in the 90s. People might remember that. People go in, brew like 5 gallons of beer at a time, come back 3 weeks later, put some labels. So I went to them and said, hey man, I talked to their brewer. I said, can you make me 30 cases of beer for Hanukkah, 1996? And he goes, no, man, I can make you 100 because we have this 7 system in the back. I mean, I didn't even know what 7 barrels was, but I knew 100 cases. Figured this is way more beer than I should make or have made for me. And, but what's the worst thing that'll happen? I'll have with a bunch of good beer after, Hanukkah, and I'll drink it for, Super Bowl and St. Patrick's Day and 4th of July. And
what beer was that?
It worked out. That was called Genesis. That was a beer contract brewed that I contract brewed. And that's the story where we hand squeezed pomegranates on the floor of my apartment in San Francisco. And it was added into the beer. And that's why we have some pomegranate fig date ever since, really, that are referencing those early days.
Did you go all the way through the first 5 books of the Bible in your first 5 beers?
We started with Genesis, and then the next beer I put out was called Messiah. I figured we'd start in the beginning and go straight to the end.
Yeah, just go right to the good part. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the Messiah. It was originally a stout, so in honor of Stout Month. Now it's a nut brown ale, and I love that beer. Actually, it's one of my favorites in our portfolio. It's one of our core brands now. But then, I was at Brewmakers. 9 months later, I'd self-distributed. I got about 35 accounts in Northern California. I was schlepping the beer around before my full-time job and after my full-time job and on the weekends. And I realized, well, let me try to keep going. So I quit my full-time job. I switched the production to Anderson Valley Brewing Company in Boonville, and started heading up there, worked with those guys for about 6 years. And that really was where the brand got off the ground. I got a ton of great PR, sold the beer in San Francisco, LA, Chicago, and New York a little bit. At that point, 22-ounce bottles only. Honestly, it was a great PR success, but never really a sustainable business. I pretty much lost all my friends and family's money, my own. I basically went out of business for a year and a half, and came back to try it one last time. And I moved to Brooklyn, and I moved onto my buddy's couch and signed up with Mendocino Brewing Company, which is from California, Northern California, where I'm from, but at their East Coast brewery in Saratoga Springs, New York. And I charged $50,000 to my credit cards, because that was pre-crash, right? You could still get 0% balance transfers. Mm-hmm. And for a guy who had not had a salaried job for many, many years, somehow I had up to $50,000. So I maxed them out. I bought 2 big batches of beer from Mendocino, desperately tried to sell them to anybody who would listen to me. And I got a couple of wholesalers on the East Coast, a couple more in the Midwest, a couple more in the South, around the country for 5 years. Literally gave up my apartment in San Francisco, gave up my sublet in Brooklyn, and for 5 years just went door to door to door to door to door to door to door forever.
Wow.
I was brewing in upstate New York there for from 2003 to still, we're in upstate New York, but then opened the brewery 3 years ago in 2013. So
that's
it's
awesome.
Some pretty good adventures, man. It is, we always give the young guys a hard time and say like, hey, how's it going, man, in the beer industry? And they're like, oh, bro, living the dream. Like,
yeah.
Which part? You want the grain out part, or the schlepping, cases in the middle of winter down the steps in the back, or like the endless, nose that you have to get from people that you're trying to sell to? But that was
it kind of sounds like a cautionary tale to me, because really, you should not have made it. You did everything wrong.
I know.
You just made good enough beer to carry it.
And I have a very high tolerance for punishment. So I think it's a combination. You're right. It's like I joke. I wrote a book called Craft Beer Bar Mitzvah. It was about the first 13 years of my business. And, honestly, most of those beer, not the beer books, but most business books are pretty boring. They're by some blowhard who's like, I made it big. Look at me. I knew it was going to happen. I just worked really hard and I'm smarter than everybody. Not my book. Craft Beer Bar Mitzvah, literally, cautionary tale is an understatement. It's like a how not to. And, but it's craft beer. So worst comes to worst, at least you're schlepping around, talking to really cool beer bars, going to music venues that are interested in craft beer and great music, working with gastropubs and coffee shops and all these really creative folks who are interested in alternative ways of looking at flavor and small business. So we had a little really great beer, and it was an awesome way to see the country. And now I wish sometimes I had more time to be on the road, and sometimes I just want to be home and work at the brewery. So trying to do both those things.
Well, nobody's going to question your stamina, because you're at a Mardi Gras party in New Orleans, and I'm pretty sure that Mardi Gras is in. If you're getting started now, This is a winter of legend.
Yeah, well, my girlfriend is a politician from Brooklyn, so I'm at the elected officials there, the state legislators, the black state legislators from around the country. We're at this really cool, kind of somewhat legendary giant warehouse on the west bank of New Orleans, where they build a lot of the floats and then get their act together and then get stuff ready for the season. During the off seasons, they throw parties. So there's a 50-foot po' boy and a bunch of gumbo and some shrimp and 3 bands, and I'm still drinking Crown. But this afternoon, I will say I got a chance to go over and tour NOLA Brewing with Kirk and Derek and Dylan and taste their sour beers and taste their brand new experimental 003 IPA. So I've been drinking craft today as well.
Well, for what it's worth, I just bought a copy of Craft Beer Bar Mitzvah on Amazon.
Still relevant. I hope you paid like what, 99 cents? I hope.
No, I just paid $16.99,
baby.
$16.99, baby.
Damn!
Yeah.
If I could charge that much for my 6-pack, like we'd be rolling in it.
Jeremy, you've got my email address. Jeremy, can you just send me a copy of that? And offset Randy's overpayment.
Randy could get it. Randy can send it in, get it signed, and then he can send it to you for 99 cents.
That's right.
So it's fun. Honestly, I think you'll really like it because not only that, but I really loved writing, and my buddy Jim is a kick-ass writer. He helped me write the thing, and so yeah, it's a great gift. Hey, we're coming up on the holidays. Anybody who wants to open a brewery, the next 5,000 people in the next 2 years that want to open them.
The next 5,000 people. Yeah. You mean the next 2 months? Seems like
exactly.
Yeah. So speaking of you mentioned earlier about your I think you said Genesis was your favorite beer and you're currently in your portfolio. Matt, what are you drinking?
Well, I've got a 2013 Funky Jubilation, and it is just about everything you'd ever hoped it would be. It is still got funky. some good tart, some good acidity to it. And it's just really mellowed out over these couple of years. It's a liquid raisin. I'm drinking a raisin with a little bit of rye whiskey on the finish.
That beer is a crazy ass experiment, and that honestly was almost the death of my whole company, and it turned into one of our most award-winning beers, including. A couple years ago, we won a silver medal at the World Beer Cup right behind a little company that knows something about barrel-aged sours called Rodenbach. So that was really exciting. I mean, I love that beer. It's a blend of all of the beers in our portfolio aged in rye whiskey and bourbon barrels for somewhere between 3 months and 3 years. And the funk in that is all just from the barrels and time.
Wow.
We didn't dose it with lacto. We didn't dose it with PDO. We didn't do anything super nuts other than find the perfect barrels that have evolved over the last few years.
Well, that's why the batch number is printed right on the neck here. It says batch 2.
Yeah. Oh, nice. Oh, wow. That's early. Yeah, there you go.
You know, Matt, I think I had I bought that beer first. You remember that day you and I met and we went up to Ephrata and hung out with Gil?
Yep.
I bought a bottle of beer then. I think that was, 2 years ago?
Yep.
And I think I drank it shortly after I came home, and I immediately regretted not buying a second bottle because I thought that beer was fantastic. I mean, it had some funk, you know, it had some sourness going on, but it was almost it was right above subtle. Yeah. Right? And just enough so you know it's there, but it worked perfectly with the beer, and it was an amazingly delicious beer, and I think they poured it at Savor 2 years ago too.
Yeah, we've been able to show that beer off, and each year it's different, and it also changes a lot in the bottles. So that's one of the nice things about this adventure for Funky Jubilation is that we use a different base now each year. The first 3 years were the same base. That was Jubilation 15. But now we rebrew a different beer. Last year we used Jubilation 17. But this year we actually brewed what we've been calling our Funky Feeder, and it's a 10%, 10 malts, 10 hops, 10% giant brown ale that we put in those same funky barrels. So it's every year it's different. Every year you're going to get a different balance between more of a Brett character. Those are real juicy, kind of Bing cherry, almost like tart raspberry, the ones you guys are talking about. Last year's a little more roast and chocolate, a little bit drier, but still just big, jammy flavors from Origin, our pomegranate strong ale, and Rejuvenator, our date Doppelbock Belgian double. So I'm glad you guys like them. We really love making those beers.
And I'm gonna real quick. I'm drinking your Jubilation 18. I think I had 16 before, which was 16 malt, 16 hops, 16%. After I had been out drinking, and it was a delicious mistake. Because for a long time, you guys you had the same amount of malts, same amount of hops, same amount of alcohol, and then the next year will go up by one for an anniversary beer. This year, well, not this year, but I don't know what year this was bottled. You'd know better than me. But it's 18
that
malts.
Was 2 years ago.
Okay, 18 malts, 18 hops.
That's
12.4%. I'd always assume that you guys back down the ABV because it's going to be ridiculous to have like a 24% beer at some point in the future, and secondly, there are some states that just won't let you sell beer over a certain ABV. So is that the reason why you guys backed it down?
Yeah, for that one in particular, also, I realized we hadn't come out with Hanukkah beer yet, so we were just kind of working on a Hanukkah beer. So that was my holiday beer, and I realized I couldn't sell it in about 25% of the states at the time. So luckily, since then, a couple of states have popped the cap, but yeah, that's exactly right. And so this year we kind of went back at it. It's Jubilation 20 is 10 malts, 10 hops, and it's about 60.5% this year. So Jubilation 20 and Genesis 2020, both our 20th anniversary beers, we figured we'd crank up to about as far as any of our yeast would go. So that was really fun. I've been very much enjoying showing off those beers right now. They're going to be we just announced about almost 100, about 88 actual events around the country going up for Hanukkah and end of the year. So Jubilation 20, Genesis 2020, which is our barrel-aged tart barley wine that went in those same funky Jubilation barrels, but a totally different beer style. So those big giant bad boys will be illegal in a couple states, so you won't get them there, but everywhere else they're going to kick ass.
Yeah, so I need to – how long has that beer been out?
Genesis 2020 just came out a couple months ago, and Jubilation 20 literally is like just coming out right now. So we just released it.
I should be able to find that at my local Total Wine, so I'll definitely be going to check those out.
So I got a quick question. I got a quick question here. So I got this Funky Jubilation in a Hanukkah pack, obviously 3 or 4 years ago. Came with a cute little glass and some Hanukkah candles, some menorah candles, and and this other beer. This is my next beer. I'm looking forward to seeing how this is aged. This is called Shmash, and it's a 0%, 0 hops, empty
Show
bottle.
the people that one. That one.
This was in the pack, and it's actually an empty bottle with a nice cap on it. Oh,
yeah.
How drunk do your marketing staff just stay all the time? Is that where this stuff comes from?
How not drunk are our customers, evidently. That they literally every year we did that. We did 8 different beers in a Hanukkah gift pack, plus a custom glass, plus an entire box of Hanukkah candles. And if that wasn't enough, we gave them a shamash, which is the 9th candle in a Hanukkah, which is the menorah for Hanukkah. It's how you make your Hanukkah menorah. You need the 9th candle so that you can light all the other candles. Well, we gave them this beautiful different design, the shamash, 0 malts, 0 hops, 0% alcohol, 0 fluid ounces. Every single year we get emails like, hey, what the hell are you guys doing? I got this empty beer. What's the problem? I want my money back. I'm like, dudes, seriously, like we just gave you 8 different beers, one at a time in a variety pack that cost you like $25-$30 with some barrel-aged sour along with a 18%, 17%, 16% giant brown barley wine, along with all our different beers that we love to make.
Along with the menorah.
Along with the instructions on how to light and build your own beer menorah. We inevitably got some people. We have the shamishes up in the tasting room just to remind folks that, once in a while you can't always get what you want. So
that's awesome. I love it.
I'm very happy that you have that. That's the one to keep. That's the best one to cellar, quite honestly.
I'm gonna. Bad. Yeah, you're absolutely. I can cellar it in full sunlight and not be concerned.
Exactly. Yeah, heat it up. Just heat it. Put it on the front window in Florida. In the whole
yeah.
So Jeremy, what are the plans on the horizon? I mean, you guys got well. First, I was gonna ask if you had expansion plans, but I don't know how big your current brew house is. And
Well, that's funny. We get that question once in a while, and I'm like, man, I went from working in my bedroom for 17 years to being in a 20,000 square foot warehouse in upstate New York, to then taking over the other half of the warehouse. So we doubled our capacity we doubled our space. We now have a 40,000 square foot warehouse. We opened with 15,000 barrels of production capacity 3 years ago. We now have 30,000 barrels of production capacity with new tanks. We just got a canning line. We're doing that for a contract right now, but next year we're going to put Slingshot into cans, which I'm really excited about. It's our dry hopped golden lager. So people keep an eye out for that. What else? I mean, our staff, we had 2 brewers when we opened, and now we've got 5 working on a 6th. So we got a lot cooking. We expanded the tasting room this year and put on 8 draft lines and opened a little game room. And, we're trying to have some fun and, man, trying to hang on for dear life in this crazy little beer world that just came up in 2 or 3 years since we opened. So it's an endless adventure. So lots of stuff coming up.
And your most recent release was Jubilation 20, right? That's
yeah.
You don't have anything other than that special coming up on the horizon, do you?
We have 4 beers out for the holidays, Randy. That's not enough. That's like
no, not at all.
We've got exactly. We've got Jubilation, which just came out. Genesis 2020, which just came out. The newest Hanukkah beer, which I'm thrilled about. I think it's a total crowd pleaser. It's 8 malts, 8 hops, it's 8% alcohol. It's a golden strong ale brewed with cocoa nibs, a little hint of chocolate, a little hint of vanilla. It is it is so smooth. It's really a lovely, lovely beer. Just won a silver medal at the World Beer Championship. So just so people don't think we're making some holiday gimmick, this is real deal, great craft beer that I'm really proud of. So that's just coming out right now. That'll be landing around the country, and we'll have a lot of events for that. You'll start seeing it on draft and in package. That's in 12 4-packs. And then we replaced that 8-pack that you were talking about. It just got too crazy to store all that beer for all a year, and the Shamish and all that fun. So we just simplified down to a variety pack for the holidays. It's a fun package. It's called Shtick in a Box. And I encourage everybody to go get their Shtick in a Box. As we put in the package, there is no junk in this box. And
in the box.
It's
you couldn't get Justin Timberlake. You couldn't get Justin Timberlake to pose for the box art. Yeah.
Well, what's so funny is that I was terrified before we put it out. I was like, please don't tell anybody that this is happening. It's a completely different word. But it's fun. I mean, it's satire. Yeah. It's fun. But some dude, I'm not even kidding, the day before we started shipping all the beer last year, he actually co-tweeted at JT or whatever the fuck his Twitter is. He tweeted Justin Timberlake like, hey, check out this amazing new package from Shmaltz Brewing Company. I'm just like, dude, if I get a cease and desist in the next 30 seconds, I'd be seriously pissed. It's ridiculous.
If you with Shtick in a Box, you kind of could make a crossover between your April Fool's joke of circumcision, right? Wasn't that?
I know.
Yeah, I mean, there's the jokes are aplenty right there. So.
There's no shortage of good puns and bad puns and other puns.
Yeah.
So,
can't go wrong with a dick joke. Yep.
Jeremy, before we wrap up, I wanna ask you a little bit more of a serious question, right? It's a question that's been making its rounds. It's been making its rounds in a couple of groups and stuff that I run in and with some of my friends. What do you think about the minority involvement in craft beer?
Oh yeah, that's a good question.
And what could possibly be done to try to increase that from the brewer's perspective? Because I speak to a lot of people, and there's a heavy consensus that it's a lot of it is due to it not being marketed in certain communities, right? But not a lot of breweries actually do a whole lot of marketing. So
right.
I mean, I'm just curious as to your take on that topic.
No, that's an awesome question, and it was funny that came up on the Brewers Association just the other day. I'm in a mixed relationship, and my girlfriend's black, and I think she's just getting into craft beer. A lot of her friends don't even know what the word craft beer means, but in general, we could say this somewhat similar about our underrepresentation of women in craft beer as well. I think that's a great question because, like, when I was running the Coney Island brand, which was a brand we started in New York City, based in Brooklyn, one of the goals for us, beyond the kind of, call it the upper middle class white craft beer drinkers that are really the bread and butter of a lot of brands. And when I was doing it was Brooklyn Brewery and Six Point and a lot of local craft and Omegang. And, I agree with you that I think people didn't do a good enough job of marketing in different neighborhoods. That was part of it. And the sales channel itself, I mean, wholesalers, retailers, all the way through, there's a lot that could be done right there. And that was something we tried to do with Coney Island, because I was like, man, we got a chance to be reaching the Puerto Rican community, the Dominican community, the Russian community, just a diverse group, the Asian community, because of the Coney Island part. So we had a unique angle. And I think, we tried, whether it was, we were going to try to do some alternative language marketing. You got to be pretty big, to your point, to do any marketing. I mean, you don't see TV ads from anybody but Sam Adams. You don't really see mainstream print from almost anybody. So that the idea that you would custom market much is difficult. On the other hand, really no reason, and I'm glad it has changed a lot. Beer festivals have changed a lot over the last few years. Start seeing a lot of different faces. I think the Craft Brewers Conference, starting to see some more faces. Whether it's I think the vendors and the suppliers more than there was a few years ago. The beer writers at this point are still a little bit one kind of looking group, one white group, group of white people. Yeah. But near us, I think there's the opportunity for change there. I don't know. The what to do about it, I think, is really easy. I mean, that just doesn't seem that hard. We need to do a better job of outreach in general ways. I mean, we're doing a fundraiser for women in craft beer called She Brew. That's a fundraiser for Girls Inc. in the greater Albany region. Part of it is being on the lookout. We were very lucky, just out of the blue, a sales rep that I just hired, his girlfriend was brewing down in Florida, Cocoa Beach. We just hired her. I was very excited. We had a lab manager, 2 lab managers who were females. They left, ended up hiring a guy. So it's been, I want more women. I want more diversity. I think, depending a little bit on the neighborhood of where the brewery is, that can be relevant for Albany. So I hired a young black kid who's great. He's been awesome on the forklift. And, he had a hip hop record label in Albany called Capital Punishment, and Albany's capital of New York, and trying to get him to tell his friends, it's easy for a bunch of 22-year-old white kids to stand around and drink beer together, but you've got to get all kinds of communities to get out there and celebrate. It's easier in New York City, to be honest, but a little easier in Oakland, but it's not that easy in San Francisco, which is still a very segregated city and is definitely a segregated beer community. But I think a lot of it is word of mouth, hand to hand, hiring practices, outreach. I don't think it's super complicated. We just have to have the initiative to do it.
Well, I'll say this. So I have a little bit of experience speaking from the black perspective as the black craft beer drinker. As it relates to this, right? So, typically when I go to a brewery on a Saturday, more times than not, I'm the only black guy there. Right. Oh yeah. I went to GABF in October. My GABF is like, I don't know, 3,000 people are in this place, right? On any given night, I may have seen like 10 black people there, right? Right. And then I'm in a Facebook group that's 500 black people deep who drink craft beer. So the market is there. The market is there, and you would think that it would behoove the brewery to kind of reach out, because that's an untapped market that's there, right? I mean, there's an opportunity, there's an economic opportunity there, and then there's an opportunity to grow your brand even more just by simply reaching out. So, you know, I think that, you know, we need to, part of it is maybe making breweries realize that it's worth it. It's worth reaching out to different demographics, and you know, because, you know, it's not white people love beer. Everybody loves beer. Black people love beer. Puerto Rican people love beer. You know what I'm saying? Jewish people love beer.
Well, and that's funny because, you know, so what's funny, when I first started in San Francisco, exactly the time I started, Hebrew started, Brothers Brewing started, and Queer Beer started.
Wow.
That was the funniest moment. So the three of us got brought on TV, the morning show outside of Sproul at Berkeley at 8:30 in the morning on like a Wednesday or something. And we got put in front of tables, and the little morning comedian kind of morning show dude interviewed us for the TV show. I was like, this is some Benetton beer drinking right now. And you know what's funny is Brothers Brewing went away. There was another African-American brewing company in Northern California, one in Atlanta. The gal at Harlem has survived, which has been great.
Celeste.
Yeah, Celeste has survived.
We need to get on. If you have an in with Celeste, come on, man. We need to get her on the show.
All right, yeah, I can make that happen.
Okay, appreciate you.
And there's another Harlem brewing company. I think it's called Harlem Blue. That's African American guy who's been making beer. And you know, listen, dude, I don't know if it's more or less, but Jews in beer from 20 years ago wasn't many more. I mean, everybody used to say to me, "Well, you know, Jews don't really drink beer." I mean, that was the comeback. All my wholesalers, all the retailers, years and years. I hear it every day, just about, if I'm out selling beer. Well, you know, we don't have any Jews, and Jews don't drink beer. It's not true anymore, especially younger generation. It's like they're just drinking as much as anybody else and drinking just more craft beer. So I agree with you. This is a great opportunity to reach out to maybe a younger African-American group, and whether that's through campus organizations, grad students, whether that's through homebrew clubs, social media makes it simple. It's like you just got to go find, you know, Black Fraternity Alumni Association, Black Sorority Alumni Association, and be like, hey, you've been drinking wine, you've been drinking, you know, liquor, why don't you come drink craft beer? It's really not complicated. We just have to have the initiative to do it.
Man, you said a word right there, man. I tell you.
Well, come to Shmaltz Brewing Company and bring your whole 500 crew, your 500 deep crew, and we will make that happen.
No doubt about it, man. Matt, you got anything else for Jeremy?
No, I'm enjoying the conversation you guys are having.
Yeah. It's a conversation.
And my funky jubilation is gone, so that's like the saddest moment of my evening. So
I know. My crown is gone, too. What am I going to do?
Well,
go get more, probably.
Right. That's a perfect place to end on an empty glass, because I'm sure you want to go and remedy that. But Jeremy, you know, thank you so much for spending some time with us, man. You know, I admit this is the first time that I've asked. This is like I want to say like 111th episode or something like that.
You guys have been going at it. This is true.
And look, this is the first time I've ever asked one of our guests the question I just asked you. And I really do appreciate your candor. I really do appreciate your openness to the subject, and you know, and recognizing that, hey, I mean, it's not hard to solve. You know, we just got to have the initiative to do it. I appreciate that. And you know, you're down in New Orleans with your girl having a good time, and you decided to carve out, you know, 30, 40 minutes to hang out with us, and we certainly appreciate it, man. Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys. I really appreciate you getting out there and spreading the great word about craft beer. It takes all of us to do this. We can't do it on our own. We don't have enough mojo and money and marketing power to get this done. It's guys like you who are out there, who are passionate enthusiasts who are spreading the word, talking to people about this stuff. We can't do it without you guys either. So it's, you know, one big happy family. Luckily, we're drinking awesome stuff and having a good time along the way. So come up to Clifton Park in upstate New York and visit me and my brewery, and we'll come down and find you guys as well.
Absolutely. So,
thank you.
And on that note, speaking of Black people and beer, be sure to join us next week when we're going to speak with Kevin Blodger of Union Craft Beer out of Baltimore, Maryland. Kevin's a Black guy, and he's the co-founder of Union Craft Beer out of Baltimore. So be sure to join us next week and hear what Kevin has to say about what's going on up in Baltimore at Union Craft Beer. So, ladies and gentlemen, until then, remember, find some great friends, find some great beer, and mind those P's and Q's. Cheers.
Cheers.
I am. Cheers.